it's great.
Yeah, not just boring black characters. I said it. I want depth.
I want something with depth. I want something with history. I want something with...
I don't want you to just like whitewash them characters.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome back to Afro Mythos, the podcast where we talk about all things African mythology,
culture,
and folklore.
And we're your hosts, Solomon and Agwé.
Agwé and Solomon, whichever way you want to say it. And in today's episode, we'll be talking about a religion that's so powerful, it was responsible for the world's first free Black republic. Damn, indeed. So this spiritual tradition was the common thread that united leaders in the Haitian Revolution and helped an army of slaves against all odds overthrow the French colonial government, beat Napoleon's army, abolish slavery, and form what we now know as Haiti.
In case you haven't guessed it, today we're talking about Voodoo, perhaps the most misunderstood spiritual traditions in the Western world. Its powerful origins, steeped in the spirit of freedom fighters, has paradoxically made it, a subject of fear and widespread misconceptions. So join us today as we discuss the origins of Voodoo, the pantheons of Loas, and dispel some of these common misconceptions.
Yeah, so I bet you're sitting there wondering now, what actually is Voodoo? I feel like when people speak about Voodoo, they just think of a lot of stereotypical things. You think black magic, you'll think, but Voodoo is actually deeply rooted in the religions of Dahomey, Congo, Yoruba, and other ethnic groups. So between the 16th and 19th centuries, these traditions were brought to the French colony of Saint-Domingue. We're going to say Domingue. Yeah. And disclaimer, pronunciations
all over the place.
Yeah. So between the 16th and 19th century, all these traditions were brought to the French colony of Saint-Domingue, which became the Republic of Haiti by enslaved Africans. So the mixing of different West African traditional religions and the influence of French colonists' Roman Catholicism resulted in the diasporic religion that we now know as Voodoo. So it's kind of a melting pot of all of these different religions. That's what Voodoo is. So this blend has created a rich spiritual practice encompassing philosophy, medicine, justice, and religion.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The cult of the dead plays a significant role in Voodoo, serving as a connection to African religious and cultural traditions and a foundation for new practices developed in response to slavery. So slaves believed that upon death, they would return to Africa, and rituals were designed to re-establish this connection. So over time, Voodoo has been shaped by the experiences of slavery, resistance, and the quest for freedom, with the religion playing a key role in the Haitian Revolution in 1791. This event, marked by a voodoo ceremony led by Dottie Bookman, ignited a slave revolt that ultimately contributed to the establishment of Haiti as a nation. One of the most powerful revolutions that we've sort of seen.
Yeah. So we're going to tell you about these cool little things called Veve symbols. Veve symbols and flags. So if you're not familiar with them, you will be now after we tell you. So these symbols play an important essential role in the spiritual practice of Voodoo. So a flag is a cloth or paper banner carried by a devotee during religious ceremonies and parade processions. So a veve is a pattern made on the ground using a powder-like substance, sometimes charcoal, sometimes gunpowder, wheat powder. I think it depends on the deity, what they use. So every Loa has the Loa, yeah. Every Loa has their own unique veve, and you can find them on the internet. They're really pretty. So if you just search VEVE, we've got some here. For all the visual
some visual learners
right here. We've got them on YouTube. Yeah, okay. They're really, really pretty symbols, and they're used to communicate with whatever spirit is being called upon. So each spirit has its own veve. So for instance, Papa Legba is invoked with a veve that features a walking cane, and this kind of portrays his intricate grandpa-like demeanor. So we'll tell you more about Papa Legba later. So in a nutshell, Voodoo flags and veves are used to communicate messages to the gods and ancestors and to invite them to various areas of life and bless people and possessions.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the core belief in Voodoo is that everything is spirit, with humans and the natural world being governed by Loas, who serve as intermediaries between humans and the divine. So the Loas inhabit a mystic land called Guinéen, a cosmic Africa, and they are served through various rites and devotional practices aimed at ensuring health, protection, and prosperity. So voodoo ceremonies and the concept of possessions are vital aspects of the religion, allowing practitioners to connect with their ancestors and spiritual world. So these ceremonies involve rituals designed to invite, powerful spirits to interact with the human world, often resulting in possession, where a person becomes completely controlled by the Loas or Mambo. This intense experience is considered a direct link to the spiritual realm, offering guidance and healing.
Oh,
yeah,
very interesting.
It is.
So you mentioned this concept of Loas a lot. So what is a Loas? So Loas. Okay, it's spelled L-O-A. Some people also spell it L-W-A.
Yeah.
So pronunciation, I feel like it's Loas. I saw it somewhere, but now I can't remember. When you get like stage fright, you forget. I'm like, ah. But I'm just going to say Loas, but I think that's what it is. I'm not sure. So Loas are voodoo spirits, and a lot of them derive from deities venerated from traditional religions of West Africa. So a lot of the countries that was mentioned earlier, but in particular the Fon and Yoruba.
Yes.
Yeah. So in fact, modern linguistics trace the etymology of Loas to a family of Yoruba language words which include Oluwa, which is God.
Yeah.
And Babalawo, which is a diviner or a priest. So I think it's Loas. Then I don't know, but I'm just guessing. So the alternate spelling of the word L-O-A means to bewitch in the Setswana language of Botswana. And the term Loas is phonetically identical to both a French term for law, which is loi, and the Haitian Creole term for law, which is loa.
Okay. So they said you can pick whichever one you believe it started from. Just giving you as many options.
Giving you so many sources, yeah. So in Haitian voodoo, the Loas serve as intermediaries between humanity and Bondaye, who is the creator divinity. So it's believed that over 1,000 Loas exist, the names of which at least 232 are recorded.
Right.
Yeah. So each Loas, kind of like Orishas, have their own personality and are associated with specific colors and objects. And many of them are equated, with specific Roman Catholic saints on the basis of similar characteristics and shared symbols. So the Loas are divided into different groups. This is really cool. And these groups are called nation, which means nation.
Nation, yeah.
So the Loas are divided into these nations. And the most notable two nations are called the Petwo and the Rada.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So that's how they're split apart.
And just to mention that, you mentioned that they had basically the supreme deity, which is
B-O-N-D-Y-E.
Yeah, B-O-N-D-Y.
Bondier.
Yeah, so they're believed to still, be like most African religions, to be monotheistic.
Yes.
In terms of, so they believe in one supreme God, and then have these other
intermediaries,
spirits.
Yeah.
As his manifestations or their manifestations on Earth and stuff like that.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with the Yoruba Pantheon, it'd be like Olodumare and the Orishas.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also, I read somewhere that the Bondier is derived from a French word, which is like born something.
Ooh.
Which means good God.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that.
There,
yeah. Little tidbits.
So the Petwo spirits are considered to be volatile and hot-tempered, exhibiting bitter, aggressive, and forceful characteristics. So in this way, they contrast with the Rada Loas, who are deemed to be sweet-natured and dependable. So the Petwo Loas are kept separate from the Rada Loas, both spatially by placing their altars in different parts of the Unfor, which is like a temple, and temporally, so by invoking them at different stages of a ritual, so they don't overlap and they're not called at the same time.
Yes. So the Petwo and the Rada Loas don't mix.
Yeah, they don't mix.
Yeah, like oil and water.
Like oil and water. So Due to their nature, petro-Loas are treated carefully by voodooists because they are deemed especially effective at getting things done, particularly when it comes to matters like money. And the Rada are referred to as Loa Racine, which means root Loas, as they're often regarded as having an intimate relationship with their worshippers. So they're often given names implying like family connections. So like, such as like Papa, which means father, and Cousin, which means cousin. So that's where you get like Papa Legba or Cousin. I don't know which one.
Cousin something, okay.
Cousin.
Yeah. So on that, let's give you some examples of Peto Loa and a Rada Loa. So Erzulie Danto is an example of a Peto Loa, and some Rada Loa are Legba, Erzulie Freda, Dambala, Agwé, Ayida-Weddo. And interestingly, there is a Loa called Ogou, so very similar to the Orisha Ogun, and he does not fit into either category, so he's not a Petwa or Rada. So although he carries weaponry which is associated with the Petwa, he's also seen as a defender of Rada values, as like the deity he is.
Right.
So he's kind of the only one that's like not, he's got like 1 foot in one and 1 foot in the other.
Yeah, I guess it's like when they say like Ogun is, god of creativity and destruction.
Yeah, it's like oxymoron. Yeah. So according to Voodoo belief, the Loa communicate with humans through dreams and divination, and in turn are given offerings. So Voodoo teaches that during ceremony, the Loa possesses specific practitioners who during the procession are considered to be the Chwala, the horse of the Loa. So through possessing an individual, Voodoos believe that the Loa can then communicate with other humans, offering advice, admonishment, or healing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we're gonna, I guess, tell you some prominent Loas and sort of their roles within the religion and the mythology.
Take it away. Solomon's going first.
Starting with Legba.
Legba.
Papa Legba. So Legba is one of the most important Loas in Haitian Voodoo, who serves as an intermediary between God and humanity. So he stands at a spiritual crossroads and gives or denies permission to speak to the spirits of Guinea, and he's believed to speak all human languages, like someone that we know.
Someone called Eshu.
So no Loa dares shows itself without Legba's permission. He controls the crossings over from one world to the other, and Legba is also known to hold the keys to the spiritual world, and for this reason is identified with the Christian St. Peter as well as St. Lazarus and St. Anthony. So I don't think I read the Bible enough to get sort of like the saints.
I don't know the saints that well. Yeah.
What attributes led them to synchronize one to another.
Yeah.
But, for those that know, they know, innit? Those that get it. So he is a small, crooked, lovable old man who uses a small pipe with a little tobacco and carries bits of food in his makout sack. So he has sores on his body, and when he mounts someone, the person's limbs are twisted and horrible to see.
Ew.
So in Benin, Nigeria, and Togo and Ghana, mainly among the Yoruba and Agwé people, Legba is viewed as a young and virile trickster. So that's where we start.
That's where we get Eshu. Yeah, because Eshu is also known as
Legba. Seen like as a younger.
Yeah, exactly.
Character. I think somewhere, because obviously Voodoo and it's sort of like a melting pot of different religions.
Yeah.
I think somewhere along the line it was like you got Eshu mixed with Babaliwaye. The old man
with the swords,
probably then created
it's kind of how like you said earlier when we were speaking about this, there's no like almost Shango alternative. It's kind of like the Ogou figure mixed in one.
Which is super interesting. So Legba is twinned with his petro opposite, which is Kalfu, who also controls the crossroads. So actually, were it not for him, the world would be so much better, apparently. it'll be, you know, a more rational, a better place. But not unlike Pandora in the Greek religion myths, who sort of lets out all of, you know, the bad spirits from the box, because obviously Zeus tricks her or expects her to open the box. You know, you can't just put a box in my house and say,
don't open it.
But yeah, you know, all those spirits of like, you know, like bad stuff came out through there.
Yeah.
In the same way, Kafui controls the evil forces of the spirit world, and he allows the crossing of like bad luck, deliberate destruction, misfortune, injustice to cross over. So he's like that security guard that is, he's not checking.
He's not checking. Yeah, he's just letting them through.
Just good. Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you about Erzulie.
Erzulie.
Yes, for those who are familiar with the musical Once on This Island, very beautiful musical. She is very prominent in that one. So Erzulie,
I think she's the villain in that one, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
If I'm honest with you. Yeah.
So Erzulie is a family of Loas that are often associated with water, fluidity, love, femininity, and feminine bodies. They are one of the only group of spirits directly tied to these characteristics, and those who become possessed to the spirits of possession are either women or people called Mazizi, which are effeminate or homosexual men. Yeah.
Yes.
So Erzulie are feminine spirits that personify different aspects of womanhood, which kind of makes sense. So previously, when we were talking about the Petwa or the Danto spirits, we mentioned that Erzulie, Petwa or what? Radar. Never mind. So previously, we mentioned that Erzulie Danto is a Petwa Loa, and Erzulie Freda is a Radar Loa. Right. So Erzulie Freda is a Radar Loa who represents romantic love and erotic sexuality, while Erzulie Danto is a Petra Loa and represents the hardworking and sometimes angry mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one's the... Okay, I know there's no like good and evil or good and bad, but which one's the good side? Which one's the
quote unquote? Yeah. Erzulie Freda is the, I don't want to say good, but she's the good one, and then Erzulie Petra Danto is the bad one.
Okay, so okay.
But they're not. There's no, especially in there's no such thing as good or bad. There's no like evil spirits or you know,
and I sort of read that, you know, unlike, you know, in Christianity, there isn't like an antithesis to God.
Yeah.
As in stated.
Which
in this religion.
Yeah. Which we'll talk more about later. So Erzulie Freda, also known as Lady Erzulie, is a fertility goddess of love, and she's syncretized with Our Lady of Sorrows, also known as the Virgin Mary. And Erzulie Danto is a fearless warrior with a dark complexion and maternal nature. And it is accounted that the slave revolt of 1791 started with a pact which followed a big feast in honor to Erzulie Danto. So for this reason, she's also considered to be the national Loa.
Yes. Is that the same slave revolt that we were talking about earlier? 1791?
Yes, it is. Yeah. A lot happened in 1791.
Yeah, apparently.
So other stories in the religion know that Erzulie Danto is non-speaking, and there's this really interesting story why. It's known that her tongue was cut off by Haitian revolutionaries who feared that she would betray them. So they cut off her tongue. So because of this, Erzulie Danto only utters syllables during procession.
Right.
Yeah, so you know how like we were like, someone can be possessed by the Loa, and then the Loa will speak through them.
Right.
If yours is Erzulie Danto, then you're only saying syllables.
Syllables.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means A-E-I-O-U.
Oh, you
No. Sorry. Guys, I'm so tired. Syllables are... What's the syllable again?
Honestly, like I'm trying to think like syllable because syllable.
Yeah, I thought this is syllable, so she only sees in syllables. So like, because that's one syllable. But do we not all speak in syllables?
Like what?
Guys, our mind is blown. We all speak in syllables, right?
Yeah.
Is
it more like limited syllables?
Maybe it's limited syllables.
You need to.
Yes, maybe it's like that.
If we're right or wrong, we'll be decided this is kept in or cut out.
Oh my gosh. So it's known that Danto's anger has the power to destroy, and her displeasure has earned her the reputation of being the red-eyed Erzulie rouge. So her destructive powers often come in the form of natural disasters or the forces of nature. And there's actually really interesting love triangle between the two Erzulies. So Erzulie Frida is Dante's rival and is said to be responsible for leaving scars on her cheek known as the Trois Muck. And during this was because they fought over Ogou.
Right. Yeah. Yes. As I said, Shango doesn't exist in this place.
Yes. So according to some legends, these two were fighting over Ogou, which seems like a very interesting folktale. So another distinction between them is that Frida is light-skinned and relatively wealthy. So this is indicative of her status as an upper-class woman. And as previously mentioned, Erzulie Dantor is dark-skinned. So according to stories, because of this, she resonates with lower-class women in Haitian society. Do with that what you will. Did someone say colorism? Maybe, but we see. Okay. Again, there's no good or bad, but moving on swiftly to Agwé.
So Agwé is the Loas who rules over the sea, fish and aquatic plants, as well as the patron Loas of fishermen and sailors. He is believed to live in an underwater island and is married to Erzulie Frida and La Sirene, which sounds like a mermaid.
Yeah, she's a mermaid, yeah.
Yeah. Under his jurisdiction, how do you say so? Under his jurisdiction comes not only all the flora and fauna of the sea, but all ships which sail on the sea. So his symbols are tiny boats, brightly painted oars and shells, and he likes military uniforms and gunfire.
So he's probably one that his Veve would be made out of gunpowder.
Yeah. So something quite interesting is that the service for Agwé is quite different from others since it's on the sea itself. So a bark is prepared, which is like a boat, like a small boat or whatever you call it. It's prepared with all sorts of Agwé's favorite foods, including champagne. I'm correct. So this bark is then floated over the top, where it's believed that the sacred underwater world exists.
Oh.
So if this bark sinks, then Agwé has accepted this sacrifice and will protect the water interests of whoever's prepared to sacrifice.
Yes.
If they're out in the sea, that's my boy.
Yeah. Okay. I see. Yeah.
But if that bark floats back, if you see it turning around and coming back to you, then this service has been refused back to sender.
Oh no.
And a different manner of placating Agwé would be devised and advised. Wow,
interesting. So that's Agwé. So now we're going to be talking about the rainbow serpent, also known as Ayida-Weddo. So Ayida-Weddo is the Loas of fertility, rainbows, wind, water, fire, wealth, thunder, and snakes.
Damn, the list goes on.
The list goes on and on and on. So alongside Dambala, Ayida-Weddo is regarded as the most ancient and significant Loas.
Okay.
Apparently. I feel like everybody is the most significant in some sort of way.
I am the big one.
So considered in many sources as the female half of Dambala's twin spirits, the names Da Ayida-Weddo or Dan Ayida-Weddo have also been used to refer to her. But we're going to go for Ayida-Weddo today.
Okay.
Yeah. So thought to have existed before the earth, Ayida-Weddo assisted the creator goddess Mawulisa in the formation of the world and is responsible for holding together the earth and the heavens. Ayida-Weddo bestows love and well-being upon her followers, teaching fluidity and the connection between the body and the spirit. So Ayida-Weddo is a member of the Rada family of Loas, so like the Rada side, not the, and she's associated with protection, benevolence, and love. It seems like, I don't know, but I feel like if this was a person, they'd be into yoga.
Yeah.
It seems like that sort of...
Yeah, it's also giving like avatar vibes, your old chakras.
Yes.
Sort of being the...
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it?
So the Fon people of Benin believe that the rainbow serpent Ayida-Weddo was a servant of Mawulisa and existed before the earth was made. So as Mawulisa created the world, the serpent carried the goddess in its mouth and she shaped the earth with her creations.
Oh, I did think I heard this name in the...
Yeah.
Was it the Fon Creators?
Yeah.
Story, yeah.
Yeah, so That's quite cool. So as they went across the land, the rainbow serpent's body left behind the canyons, rivers, valleys, and mountains. And Ayida-Weddo had a twin personality whose red half was male and whose blue half was female. And together they held up the earth and the heavens. So the female half was said to arc thunderbolts and rainbows across the sky with its body and lived amongst the clouds, trees, springs, and rivers. Asked by Marilita to help support the weight of her creations on the earth, the rainbow serpent's male half coiled his body underneath the world to prevent its collapse.
I've not heard of it in this detail, which is great to hear. I just remember Ayida-Weddo tying around the earth and sort of squeezing it to hold it in place.
But this is going even deeper. So as the male half is holding the earth with its body underneath, it's writhing from exertion under the world's weight, because obviously the world is heavy. The world is heavy, guys. So this male half serpent causes earthquakes in the land, and when it runs out of iron that states its hunger, it is said that the serpent would devour its own tail, finally causing the heavy earth to sink into the abyss.
Damn.
Yeah. Something climate change.
I agree with you on that one.
Something, there's no planet B.
Speaking of iron.
Oh, segue.
Ogou. It's spelled Ogou.
Yes.
So, a powerful warrior spirit representing strength. Ogou is associated with fire, iron, and politics. He gives strength through prophecies and magic. And it is Ogou who is said to have planted the idea, led, and even gave power to the slaves for the revolution and consequent freedom of 1804. He is called now to help people obtain a government more responsible to their needs.
He's a political one.
Yeah, which is really interesting to hear.
Yeah.
So Ogou comes to mount people in various aspects of his character. So, and the people are quite familiar with each of them. So some of these aspects are Ogou, the wounded warrior. So he assumes like a Christ-like pose, which the people know well from their Christian association. And as Ogou Ferrali, he gives strength to the servitors by slapping them on the thighs.
Yay. Oh my gosh. We know what a slap on the thigh looks like. You don't need to do it, okay? Don't hurt yourself.
It was for dramatic effect. So like, yeah. Okay, slap on the thigh. I slapped, in case your head, I slapped myself.
Oh yeah, he slapped himself on the thigh.
Just need to make sure that no one's thinking anything. So he gives strength to the servitors by slapping them on their thigh or on their back. And as Ogou Badagris, he may lift a person up and carry him or her around to indicate his special attention and patronage. I would love to see this.
Yeah.
So all the aspects of Ogou, there is a dominant theme of power and militancy. So his possessions can sometimes be violent. Those mounted by him are known to wash their hands in flaming rum without suffering from it later.
Wow.
It became firebenders.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
So Ogou is identified with Saint Jacques, the warrior general, and is often in the guise of a Revolutionary War general. I'm sorry that there's names coming out here that
I've never heard of these saints before in my life. Yeah. But yes. I mean, we all learning together, right? Yeah. So let's talk about the Loas of the dead associated with resurrection and fertility. And this is Baron Samedi. So I think Samedi is a day of the week in French. Lundi, mardi, mercredi. I think it's it's Saturday. Yeah. So anyone who would seek contact with the dead must first solicit Baron Samedi in the same way that Legba is contacted to cross over to the spirit world. Right. So as keeper of the cemetery, he has intimate contacts with the dead.
So the spirit world is not the same as the land of the dead.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it is interesting. It is, yeah. So Baron Samedi knows what their plans were, what's going on in families, what the connections of things are, and is quite generous with this information. So even when he's clowning or performing his erotic antics, do with that what you will, if one can pull him aside and ask him a serious question, he will give a serious and reliable answer. Another of his great powers is as the protector of children, so he does not like to see children die. They need a full life, so thus he's the Loas to go to when seeking for help for a sick child. He also has the power over zombies and decides whether or not people can be changed into animals. Any such black magic voodoo must see... No, I don't want to add that bit. Yeah, animals. Because even said zombies and zombies. Anyway. Lastly, since Baron Samedi is Lord of Death, he is also the final last resort for healing, since he must decide whether to accept the sick person into the dead or allow them to recover.
Right. Damn.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's all about him.
Okay. Those are the ones that we're speaking about.
Honestly, as we said, there's 232, so...
Yeah, so, a bit of homework you can do yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe tell us about...
Yeah, tell us about some
that you found, ones that you're really interested in. So now we're talking about rituals in Haitian Voodoo. So these rituals are powerful acts that create a sacred space and establish a connection between the physical and spiritual realms. So these rituals are performed by Hougans, I think I'm saying that right, which are male priests, and Mambos, which are female priests, who are highly respected and revered within the Voodoo community. So they are seen as intermediaries between the humans and the spirit world, and their role is to facilitate communication and seek guidance from the spirits. So one of the most important rituals in Haitian Voodoo is the ceremony known as Hunfo, which is held in honor of these spirits. So Hunfo is a gathering of Voodoo practitioners who come together to pay homage to the spirits and seek their blessings. So this ritual involves music, dance, chanting, and offerings to the spirits. So the Hugon or Mambo leads the ceremony, invoking the spirits and channeling their energy through song and dance. It sounds like a good time.
Wow, it does sound like a great time. Amazing. Another significant ritual in Haitian Voodoo is called the Gedi or Jed. How do we Gede? How should we say?
Jed. Guide.
Okay. So this Ged is dedicated to the spirits of the dead. So the Ged ceremony is a celebration of life.
So this Ged is dedicated to the spirits of the dead. Jeez.
So yeah, this ceremony is a celebration of life and death, where the spirits of ancestors are invoked and honored. So this ritual is characterized by its lively and festive atmosphere, with participants wearing colorful costumes and engaging in playful and mischievous behavior. So the Ged spirits are believed to have the power to bring good fortune, healing, and protection to the community. Yeah. And in addition to these large-scale rituals, Haitian Voodoo also incorporates smaller, more personal rituals into daily life. So these rituals are often performed in the home or at personal altars, and they serve as a way for individuals to connect with their ancestors and seek guidance and protection. Yeah. So these rituals may involve things like lighting candles, offering food and drink, or reciting prayers and invocations. And they're deeply personal and intimate acts of devotion that strengthen the bond between the individual and the ancestral spirit.
The rituals in Haitian Voodoo are not only a means of connecting with the spirits and ancestors, but also a way of maintaining balance and harmony within the community. So they provide a sense of identity, belonging, and purpose for practitioners, and they serve as a source of strength and resilience in the face of adversity. Through these rituals, the Voodoo community finds solace, healing, and guidance in the spiritual realm.
Ooh. So before we wrap it up, we're going to go over some misconceptions and realities of Voodoo as a religion, as a pantheon, because there's a lot. There's a lot. So scholars actually describe voodoo as one of the world's most misunderstood religions.
They said, you guys mess it up.
So
It's just a mess up, you know?
So it has been widely associated with sorcery, witchcraft, and black magic. For example, in a lot of popular culture, voodoo is usually portrayed as destructive and malevolent. Yeah. For example, in a lot of popular culture, voodoo is often portrayed as destructive and malevolent. Because Hollywood has mischaracterized representations of voodoo for decades, most people who aren't directly familiar with the religion have a lot of misconceptions about what it truly is. So voodoo is practiced to restore order, balance, health, and harmony in the lives of its followers. Many of us have been thought to associate voodoo with evil, demonic possession, or even black magic. This association not only makes no sense, but is silly because there are no devil figures in the voodoo pantheon. As we've discussed, Papa Legba has often been referred to as the devil in a lot of popular culture.
This is the same Ash You Hate campaign.
Yeah, no, honestly, yeah. But as we now know, and as you know, you described him as, he's clearly not that. And this is incorrect. He stands at the spiritual crossroads and grants or denies permission to speak with the spirits in the world. To speak with the spirits in the spiritual world. So voodoo practitioners believe in a supreme god named Bondai, which we talked about, and there is no devil counterpart to him. And he is not directly involved in human affairs either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've all seen those movies, right? You know, where someone grabs a voodoo doll, shoves some pins into it, and somewhere the person it's meant to represent starts writhing in agony. It's classic Hollywood, you know?
Yeah.
And it makes for a gripping scene because, you know, that is very scary.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be real, it couldn't be further from the truth about what voodoo dolls are really about. In reality, these dolls are not used to harm. The whole pin thing is actually for attaching a photo of the person you're focusing on. So just pinning the photo
to the doll. Yeah.
Which could be yourself or literally anyone else. So people attach all sorts of things to these dolls, from flower petals, coins, you name it. I don't know how you attach a coin, but you know.
It's a strong pin. Or weak coin.
So, as a way of helping the spirits recognize the doll. Mm-hmm. So it's like saying to them, hey, check this out. You know, like, you know, I don't want to say it's like, you know, when you get like a sense of someone.
Yeah, like tracking. It's like saying, this is who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about someone else.
Just a pin.
Yeah.
So
there's so many humans in the world, you know. Everyone has the same name.
Yeah, people look the same as well. So,
yeah.
You know,
gotta be specific.
Just really channeling the love of your life and so on. But instead of bringing pain, these dolls are all about channeling, you know, the vibes, maybe some good luck, or, you know, anything to help the person that the doll represents. So The Princess and the Frog is another representation of Western ignorance and fear for Haitian voodoo culture. So the movie depicts an oversimplified dynamic of good and evil, where the Loas are shown to be vengeful and sadistic. For example, when bargaining with these spirits, Dr. Facilier offers them all the wayward souls, your dark little heart's desire, implying that they claim or feed on souls of the living. And also these friends on the other side are portrayed in a variety of forms, as masks, as shadowy creatures, and as eerie dolls, all of which are inaccurate. How do you say it?
Inaccurate.
Inaccurate.
Yeah. What?
Inaccurate.
It's been a long day.
Which are an inaccurate amalgamation designed to promote like a gothic theme of voodoo, thus crediting the notion that Haiti is fundamentally connected to like an occult.
Yeah.
I did watch an episode of John Solo.
Yeah.
Talking about sort of like voodoo and sort of like that, and it was quite interesting because he was saying, obviously there's voodoo from the Dr. Facilier side.
Yeah.
There's also the side from what's her name? Mama Otis.
Oh yes, yes.
Which is like a different form of sort of voodoo as well.
Yeah, which is why I guess what we're saying is like although it's a great movie, it's kind of oversimplifying good and evil, like the Mom Otis and Dr. Facilian. But yeah, it's interesting. I guess it could be in a way representing the Radar and the Petra.
Yeah.
Loa.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And I guess in a way it also says that it also depends on the person using.
Exactly. Like with all things, it depends on the person using it. But yeah, Princess and the Frog is a great movie.
Yeah. Love
that movie. So what is the reason for all this misrepresentation? I bet you're just screaming that question. So back in the 18th century, Haiti was governed by the French, as we know, but the revolution on the island overthrew its oppressors, marking the one and only time in history that a colony of slaves revolted and gained independence as a free state. So at the time, French propaganda claimed that the Haitians made a pact with the devil to overthrow their oppressors, and the misconception that this was the case remains prevalent today, which is wild to me, because how are you saying, oh, you guys escaped captivity because of the devil?
Yeah. Like, you guys are only free because that damn devil helped you. Like,
because he freed you from like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But that's what they ran with, and propaganded.
Yeah.
And
it gandered, you know.
It did the thing.
Yeah, properly gandered.
So I actually came across this article on my research and stumbled upon this quote from an anthropologist who lived in Haiti for over 40 years, Ira Lothenwall. So thank you, Ira. And they said that the best thing that ever happened to racism is voodoo. Through movies and media, they made up stories about voodoo, and their stories confirmed every prejudice of every white person in the world. Black people are scary and dangerous. You can actually see on your screen your own racist beliefs justified.
Yeah.
So they saw voodoo as an opportunity to kind of, you know, like highlight this, you know, propaganda, and people could watch it and be like, yeah, that's why I'm scared of them. That's why I don't like them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the quotes.
Fairs.
And sorry, you going?
Yeah, no, carry on.
Yeah, so like, for example, when Haiti was struck by the earthquake in 2010, which I actually remember when that happened. Yeah. American televangelist Pat Robertson said that it was God's revenge for the pacts that they made hundreds of years earlier.
How dare you?
So, of course, this claim only showed how much the televangelist misunderstood the nature of voodoo, because there's hardly, but he's hardly the only person to hold this belief. But yeah, a lot of people believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
But hopefully we changed your perception, and hopefully you're not scared, because I feel like quite a few diaspora, when you know you mention voodoo, they get scared instantly. They're like, oh my gosh.
It's literally, people have made it synonymous with like juju.
Yeah.
You know, evil or black magic or judge or whatever.
And it's really not.
Yeah, very reductive, and it sort of stops people from understanding the complexity of someone else's religion, practices, and you sort of come in with these preconceptions and these stereotypes, and it just means that you sort of just you're basically undermining someone's whole culture. Yeah,
and you're missing out on learning something awesome as well, because it is really cool. And even before research, I didn't realize how much of like a melting pot this is of different like African religions and pantheons, as well as with a splash of like, you know, colonialism in there as well. So it is really interesting, and it is really all about like love and, you know, prosperity and caring about other people.
Yeah.
So,
and I think one thing, the reason why we're so passionate about letting people be able to understand the complexities of these different religions and sort of mythologies is so then you just have a richer understanding of mythologies, and you know, can be a bit more creative of what you're writing, creating, you know, have a bit more in-depth characters with actual sort of like understanding and backing behind them. Something interesting that I've watched recently was the Castlevania, which sort of delves into, so it's Castlevania is about vampires, but in the nocturnal ones they have a character, I forgot her name, who sort of like her powers come from Ogou, and sort of that she can channel like earth and swords and weapons and stuff like that flying around, and she also like channels like Papa Legba to sort of help her in her quest. And it's just really cool because she also has like a really cool backstory and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like that. More of that, please.
Yeah, more of that.
Yeah.
More, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, not just boring black characters. I said it. I want depth.
I want something with depth. I want something with history. I want something with...
I don't want you to just like whitewash them characters.
Yeah, no, and it's fair.
Yeah,
It's fair.
create original characters with original stories, with original depth and mythologies that sort of are built for them, around them.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to TED Talk.
Jeez.
But yeah, so that's all we've got today on Voodoo. And, you know, we hope you learned something. And if you did learn something, please leave a comment below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on any audio podcast platform, please rate. And
Rate us.
Any rating from 3 to 5, joking. Any rating that you want to do, honestly, it would be great.
Whatever you do, do it with your chest.
Do it with your trust.
Starting with a 5. Anyway, thank you very much.
It's
been lovely. And if there's something else you want us to know about this, you know, extra information, you know, something a little more in depth, you're writing a PhD, as everyone loves to tell. Let us know. Let us know.
Let us know, please.
We'd love to hear more and sort of like learn more about voodoo and sort of like the religion practices, the mythology.
Exactly. We'll see the mythology.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's all. We've been Afro Mythos, we've been Adechi, we've been everything.
What haven't we been?
He's been Solomon and I've been Adwa.
Whichever way you want to say it.
Thank you.
Great night. And thank you for exploring the
wonderful world of African mythology
with us.
Your hosts.
Solomon Adwa.
Adwa Solomon.
Whichever way you want to say it.
Bye.